Good afternoon, ladies and gents. Welcome to Buckfastleigh again. Our usual regular Sunday 3 PM slot for our live video. A little bit windy here today, but we will be spending quite a bit of time in the cab, so that will hopefully help there. So we're just having a quick walk around the grounds. Despite having been closed for a while, things are still looking lovely here. So we've had perfect weather recently for the flowers. Now we're hoping that very soon we'll be able to reopen our grounds at Buckfastleigh here as a sort of large living museum, or open air museum, I should say, where you'll be able to walk around and enjoy these lovely gardens. Have a look at all the exhibits we've got. Visit some of the museum areas we've got here, like the old signal box, and have a look at our workshops. I know we've had many questions from people about if we're likely to be running trains again anytime soon. We are keeping the situation under constant review. We don't have a set date at the moment for running trains again. There's a lot of factors to take into consideration. But we are constantly reviewing it to see, to check that it's going to be financially viable, and if it does prove to be so, then we will obviously do so. So we're here at Buckfastleigh, got Locomotive 3205 here, and one of our regular hosts, Rodney, is here to show us around and give us a guided tour of the loco. Good afternoon, Rodney.
Thank you, and you join us on a very pleasant afternoon, unusually at the moment, at Buckfastleigh. And today we're going to continue our series in looking at different locomotives on the South Devon Railway. And today we're going to look at the Collet Goods. The name itself is a little bit of a misnomer, because although it was a Collet Goods, it was actually introduced by the Great Western Railway for use principally in South Wales to replace some of the older pre-1923 engines. And when we have a look at it in a minute, you'll see that it is also equally at home on a branch passenger as it would be on a goods train. Quick hello to Ryan Skinner, Ryan Lamb, James Afcock, Michelle Piper, Ozzie Myers, Ben Knight and Susan Madden from Cornwall. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Right, the Collet Goods. First of all, it's an 060. So basically we've got no pony wheels, we've got 6 driving wheels. No pony wheels that end, no pony wheels that end. And instead of the usual tank engine we look round, today we're looking around the tender engine. We particularly like this locomotive on the South Devon Railway because it's either a big little engine, if you like, or a little big engine. People, when they come to visit us, like to see a tender locomotive. For a start, it looks more the part, and secondly, when we look at the footplate in a minute, you'll see how accessible it is. People can come in and they can watch us and they can see and they can talk to us. But from a practical point of view, it's a very nice engine to work on. Firstly, from the point of view of a fireman, it steams like most Great Western engines incredibly well. And from the point of view of a driver, whatever task is asked of it, it seems able to perform. For a start, on a freight train, because you've got such a good lookout, when you're buffering up to wagons, you can do it relatively easy. Quick hello to Gareth Barnard, Tina Gwilliam from Worcestershire, and Nick Jackson from Watercress Line. Hello Watercress Line, I hope you're sort of getting poised to come back online again. As Ernie's explained, we're looking at the situation, reviewing it constantly. So the sooner the better, we hope. Moving back to the Collet Goods, as I say, it's got an incredibly good lookout for a start from a driver's point of view. And also, if we have a look between the frames, look at the height of the boiler compared to all the motion. And when we have to oil the locomotive, we climb inside there to do our oiling. We've got plenty of room, plenty of light, plenty of space. Lovely engine to oil. And then when we come on the outside again, we've just got the coupling rods to do. All accessible. Axle boxes, very accessible. And then we just have a little walk around the tender. Again, all very easy to get at. The tender buffers. Again, the axle boxes, that's these pieces of equipment. We've got corks here, we've got horn guides here, brake gear, all very easy to get at and very easy to oil. The other point of view, or the other thing that I'd like to point out to you is the fact that even though it's a tender engine, this is one of the smaller Great Western tenders. This is a 3,000 gallon tender. And because it's a smaller tender, it's a lot lower. And again, when we're going in reverse, it's very easy for the driver to lean out from the cab and the fireman and see what we're doing. So as I say, we've got a 3,000 gallon tender. We've got an 060 inside cylinder steam engine because all the motion is on the inside, and it's a mixed traffic locomotive. This particular locomotive is quite late in the day. This one was built in 1946 at Swindon, and it served at Shrewsbury, Gloucester, Worcestershire, and then after a while it went to Machynlleth in mid-Wales. So it's had quite a varied career. Hello to Luke Owen, hello to Mark Haller, hello Mike, Kevin Hampton, Ed Matthews. Does this engine get used on the railway? Right, this engine is actually owned by a trust, and working in close cooperation with the South Devon Railway, we're hoping to forge an agreement for its restoration. At the moment, after many years in traffic, it's out of service because of two principal problems with it. It virtually needs a new boiler, and just now we looked at the cylinders on the inside. Well, in here we have a massive casting called the cylinder block, which incorporates the cylinders with the pistons in, also the valves, and that comes up to form the saddle that the actual boiler and smoke box sit on. And this is a massive great casting and is very, very expensive, and it needs one of them because unfortunately the cylinder block is cracked. So new boiler, new cylinder block. If anyone's got a few bob they can spare, please throw it at us. Hello to Daryl Barnes from Zurich in Switzerland. Oh, nice to see you. Thank you for joining us this afternoon, Daryl. That's brilliant. John Lee and Leo Barco, hello to you. Shame about 6412 as it's just sitting here in Chinner. That's a very good point. Unfortunately, all our lovely engines are just sat here in Buckfordsley due to the pandemic. But as Ernie said, as I just summarised just now, we are hoping to do something towards the end of the month. So please, please, please keep watching the website. Back to the Colic goods. Right, as I say, she was based at Machynlleth. Now, when it came to the end of steam, sadly, this practical, useful, reasonably young, well-developed class of locomotive was just culled, just like that. Except for this girl, because in 1965 she went to Temple Combe on the Somerset and Dorset Railway, and therefore didn't get involved in the cull on the western region of all the rest of the locomotives. And you'll see it's got a plate on the splasher here in memory of a gentleman called David Rouse. And were it not for David Rouse, this locomotive would not have been saved for posterity. And as it's the only one of the class, we are very, very lucky to have it. Dave Hall says, good afternoon, Rodney. My favourite engine to drive and fire. A colleague of mine, Dave Hall, a former Bristol Bath Road man, the same as myself. And Martin Shelley says, Rod, didn't you work the oil tanks to Machynlleth? I didn't actually, but a BR friend of mine who has just come up on screen, Martin Shelley, I did visit him at Machynlleth, and the traffic assistant was sat there doing the rosters, and he introduced me. But before he introduced me, I tapped him on the shoulder and I said, excuse me mate, Exeter man up with the tanks, any back working? And he jumped so far in the air he put a line right across his rosters because he didn't expect to be an Exeter man in Machynlleth. Jacob Wood says, hello from the USA. Hello Jacob, thank you for joining us in the USA. I do hope the situation over there improves as soon as possible. He said, I love 3205. I also love 3205. And keep this to yourselves, but if I win the lottery, I'm going to restore this engine, but not a word to anybody. Ben Knight says, when's it going to be restored? Well, as I say, all joking aside, it's a trust that own this locomotive, and we're very, very lucky. The trust have been its custodians for many, many years. She has been based on the South Devon since 1998. She's done a lot of good work on the South Devon Railway, but now, as I say, she needs a full restoration, principally the new boiler and cylinder block, and it's a question of reaching agreement between the South Devon Railway and the 3205 Trust to get this sorted out. But I'm sure, in the interests of the engine, that we will reach an amicable agreement. Sam Strong says, how much would it cost to overhaul her? Oh my goodness me. I really don't know. I would probably say at least 500,000, 500,000. That's just a guess. Hello to David Peter Shaw in Bulgaria. Hello, Bulgaria. Nice that you're tuning in to us today. Right, getting back to 3205, as I say, useful, practical engine, the only survivor, saved because she went over to the Somerset and Dorset, and you'll see that on the branch from Evercreech Junction down to Bridgewater and Highbridge, there are many, many photos of 3205 and her sisters performing on the branch lines there, going along the dikes and waterways of the Somerset levels. In fact, apart from the western region, that really is their sort of like prototypical stamping ground, the Somerset and Dorset. Hello to Steve Wade, a colleague of mine from Exeter St David's. We will get that point, Steve. Pete Chapman, if I win the lottery, I'll give you a hand. I like that, Pete. We'll go in it together. Perhaps we'll get some coaches done as well. And perhaps we'll open the Bridgewater branch on the Somerset and Dorset. Who knows? But right, back to 3205. She is at the moment, as you can see, out of service. She does need a lot of work doing on her. But as a class, let's have a look in the cab. We've got these temporary doors on because we have taken her to several exhibitions, so we have to keep it sort of safe for the public to get up and down. We put a set of steps up the other side, up this side blanked. But we'll climb up in the cab and have a look. Well, here we are in the cab of 3205, and it's a pretty standard Great Western layout. Do you remember when we were talking about 1369, we discussed the Great Western combination brake ejector? And here is exactly the same piece of equipment on an 060 tendon engine, almost the same as what we've got on 1369, certainly the same as what we've got on 6412, 5532 and all the smaller tank engines on the Great Western Railway. So standardisation is the name of the game. Hello to Ryan Hughes, Neil and Charlie Brown, Joseph Hart, Richard Westwood from Dubai. We're having an international broadcast today. And hello to Connor Skeets. Thank you all for joining us. Anyway, moving back to the collet. Do you remember I said it was a bit of a misnomer that she's a collet goods? The reason it's a bit of a misnomer is she's fitted with a screw reverse. Now, with a screw reverser, instead of the big lever, we can actually more infinitely alter the valves. It's a more precise way of doing it. On a freight locomotive, it's better to have a lever because if you're shunting, it's just simply pulling the lever forward or pushing the lever back. If you've got to do shunting with an engine which has got a screw reverse, it's a nightmare, and you curse the shunter if he pushes you over the points and you've got to wind it back over the points again, do another little shunt, stop, wind it back. By the end of the day, you look like Popeye. So, as I say, it's a screw reverse, so principally it's meant for passenger, but it is a mixed traffic locomotive. Hello to Colin Kurzweil. Hello, Colin. Our former traction inspector, greatly respected in the steam industry. Somebody that taught me a great deal of how to conduct myself on the railway, so it's very nice of you to join us this afternoon. Jamie Maltley from Sheffield, hello to you. Jonathan Fry says, sad to see so many locos, lovely locos, needing restoration. It is, but actually, when you look on the South Devon Railway, we've got 3803 down there and 4920 Dumble Hall, but also we are very lucky that we have got 1369 working, 6412 working, which I appreciate at the moment is at Shinner. We've got 5542 working, so we're not doing too badly. Did I say 1369? I did, yes.
5526, L92.
5526, yeah, and of course L92, our Great Western pannier tank. So we have got quite a collection of working locomotives at the moment. Well, not working at the moment, obviously, but as soon as the pandemic's over, they will be working locomotives yet again. It is a sad job. Hello to Reese Prince from Barry, Jessica Kimsey, Samuel Strong. How many coaches could she pull? Well, she'll certainly on this line, she'll do 6 easily. She is a really powerful little loco. The gauges have been removed at the moment because she is pending restoration, but she actually works at 200 psi boiler pressure. So she's quite a high pressure boiler. A lot of Great Western engines are 165, but this one is 200, and she has got a fair bit of power. She's good at, well, basically all the roles that we've talked about. She's good at branch passenger. She's very, very nice to stop at stations because have a look out here. Have a look through the driver's window. You can see just about everything. You can see right down to the front buffer beam. And it's the same on the fireman's side. You've got an incredibly good lookout. And if we turn round, we can look back across the tender and see what an incredibly good lookout we've got there. So she is a very, very good mixed traffic locomotive, and she is incredibly powerful and good at what she does. Hello to Alex Fisher from Surrey. Harry Walker says, can't wait to visit this summer. We can't wait to see you all come back, Harry. We really can't. And as I say, as soon as the emergency is over, listen for announcements on the website, and we will be open as soon as we possibly can. As soon as we think it's prudent to open, we will be opening, I can assure you of that. Right, moving back to the Colic goods. Look at this from the fireman's point of view. All the other engines we've discussed have been tank engines, so it's all been sort of closed in. You've got the back of the cab, you've got the toolboxes, and you've got the flap here. But on this locomotive, because it's a tender locomotive, you've got plenty of room when you've got the shovel to shovel in there and shove it straight down the front. It's literally a lovely engine to fire. Reese Prince says, I was lucky enough to fire 5541 on the Dean Forest. Love the Great Western locos. I also love the Great Western locos. If I'm honest, I would very much like to get some experience on other locomotives. I love the BR Standards because those are the only other engines I've worked on apart from Great Western locomotives. But I do hanker after having a go on a Bullied Pacific, I must admit. So yes, I love Great Western locomotives, but I also love other locomotives as well. So yeah, great engine to drive, great engine to fire, very practical locomotive to have on a branch line like this, and look forward to her coming back in traffic soon. Ben Jendon, she hauled 5 coaches when it visited the Bluebell back in 2013, which she would do fairly easily. An amazing brute of a locomotive. Yes, she is, but she is very, very gentle with the control. You can do very intricate work with her because of the setting of the regulator and the reverse of being like it is. If you've got to ease up on something, in other words, you've got to couple up to something, and you need to do it extremely gently, perhaps because of the loading or the curve. She's very, very good like that. What we actually say is with this loco, you can ease up on a mooring and not break it. Philip Kirkman, what is the shunter, please? Right, a shunter is a member of staff who works on the ground, and when we're marshalling a train, he or she is the person that has a shunting pole and uncouples and couples the wagons, decides what the order of the train is going to be, and through means of hand signals and controlling hand-controlled points on the ground, marshals the train. So as the engine crew, that's the driver and fireman, we actually work very close with the shunter. It's a very responsible job. We have passenger and freight shunters. Passenger shunters have to lift the heavy Buckeye couplings and manoeuvre the coaches in conjunction with us, but freight shunters have to be extremely skilled in the use of their shunting poles to couple up and uncouple freight trains and marshal them in the correct order. Did he mean the 09? Right, yes, that right, the term shunter actually applies to the staff. The 09, that's that diesel over there, is a shunting locomotive. But we do obviously refer to it as the shunter, so it can be a bit confusing. John Lee says, these talks have been great, looking forward to my first visit. John, we are looking forward to your first visit too. And please, when you do visit, all of you, when we are running again, come and have a look up the front, put your head round the door and say hello, because that's one thing we like to do on the South Devon Railway, is say hello. In fact, keep this to yourselves, but quite often late away, because get them right away from the guard, lift all the kids off the footplate, help mum or dad down, and then take them right away. So you don't have to think of the reason why we were 2 minutes late away from back to sleep. But we are the railway that will chat to you, so please do come down and visit us. Moving back to the Colic goods, as I say, extremely practical locomotive, one of our favourite locomotives on the branch. Very, very synonymous with the West Country. As I explained, we've got the Somerset and Dorset connection that saved her, and as I say, can't wait for her to be restored. Let's just have a look here. Here's the firebox. In the firebox, it's a very small firebox. We can just see in there the back of the firebox. It's actually a 17 square feet grate area, this one, and the small size of the firebox really does belie the power that she produces. Scott Todd Howard, a former colleague of mine from Exeter, now at Shrewsbury, funny enough. We mentioned Shrewsbury because she was based at Shrewsbury. Says, afternoon Rod, when are you coming back to North Wales for a ride on a proper machine? Well, Scott, I didn't know that you had a Colic goods on the Welsh Island Railway. it must be a bit top heavy. Harry Walker says, how is L94? Yeah, she's doing fine. Where is she? She's away somewhere at the moment. I can't think where she is at the moment, which is very remiss of me.
Not our engine anyway.
Oh, isn't it?
No.
Oh, no, ours is L92. Oh, you caught me there. And, well, anyway, that's basically the call it goods. And as I say, as soon as we can forge an agreement with the trust that look after this locomotive between us and the South Devon Railway. Hopefully we'll see her back into traffic very, very soon. Well, that's nearly it. What I would like to say to you is, if you can spare a few pounds, we would very, very much appreciate donations so that all this that you can see here, Great Western locomotives, Great Western coaches, and that branch line infrastructure can be saved not only for all of us, but for future generations to come. Samuel Strong, what's happening with 3803? John Lee, how long was her BR career? Well, this loco was built in 1946. So 2 years later the railways were nationalised, that's 48, and she came out of traffic in 1965, I believe. Daryl Barnes, does the boiler need completely replacing? As I understand it, Daryl, more or less yes. It's got to the stage now where it's like sewing good cloth onto old rag, and I think, as I understand it, from what I've heard from my colleagues in the workshop, she does need a new boiler, yes. If anyone else has got any questions, Toby and Josh, why is the firebox so small? It's so small so that it's designed to sit in the frames, so it sits actually between the frames on this locomotive, and with the size of boiler, it simply doesn't need a firebox to be any bigger than that which is provided. It's got adequate grate area. As I say, it generates 200 psi, and through that 200 psi it will do any task that is asked of it. Gordon Evans, can you show us around the tender, please? How much coal? Well, here is the tender. 3,000 gallons the tender actually holds. And if we stacked it up, we could get about 4 to 5 tonnes of coal on here. We don't do that on the South Devon Railway because we don't need that amount of coal. So what we tend to do, when we take coal, we try and take it this end. So when we go underneath the coal hopper to take coal, we back the engine and stop it so that all the coal comes down here. If it doesn't, if somebody's coaling a little, if they've got several engines to coal and they back it up and they coal it up there, it can be a real nuisance later in the day because the fireman's got to climb into the tender along with the driver and pull as much coal forward before we can actually use it. So, but as you can see, with a 3,000 gallon tender, because it's reasonably low, we can see right over the top of it and we can see right down the sides, and that makes it for a really good lookout and for really good shunting purposes. Jamie Maltby, I'm coming to the South Devon Railway in September, and Clinton Taylor says, looks easy to steam. Clinton, it is. It really does. You could take a hand lamp, shine it in the firebox, and it would make 10 pounds of steam with just the light beam. It's that good a steaming engine, and it's an extremely practical engine, as I say. Reese Prince, Mr. Collect never made it easy for crews on his... Oh, Mr. Collett never made it easy for crews on his loco. Well, actually, on this loco, it is fairly straightforward. As I say, it's all easy to get at. In the mornings, in the firebox there, it's very easy to get the tools in there and push yesterday's fire through. This locomotive hasn't got a rocking grate or a hopper ash pan. In other words, yesterday's fire, we have to get a long-handled shovel and we have to shovel it out through the firebox and out the side, which is the old-fashioned way of doing it. But having said that, with all this room, it's never really much of a problem, and most of it goes down through the grate. The locomotive is still hot in the morning, and when we light it up, again, because it is a superb steamer, she soon starts to come round. And fired correctly, with a nice light fire right across the back corners and sloping forward, she'll go absolutely all day. Harry Walker says the Collett Tender 060s are the equivalent of the Fowler 4Fs. Yes, they are. I think, though, and somebody might be able to correct me on this, am I right in thinking, people, that it's a BR3MT? I think this one was a Class 3, I do believe. But yes, I would say very, very similar in both appearance and in the tasks that it was asked to do to the good old Fowler 4F. In fact, most railways, as most of you probably know, right back to the pre-grouping era, most railways did have 060 tender locomotives. And I think I'm right in saying that this was the last design of 060 tender locomotive built on a British railway. And it was a 3MT. Yes, it's coming up on the screen. Yes, I've got it right. It was a 3MT. So that's a class 3. So that would imply that perhaps the Fowler 4MT was just a little bit more powerful. But again, both fine locomotives and both very, very good at what they were actually tasked to do. This locomotive indeed will do, as I say, anything we asked of it. This one actually did land up at a local depot for a while. It was transferred to Exmouth Junction, and it was also used on snowplough duties, because they had on the London South Western / Southern Railway, then leading on to British Railways, they had on the Southern Railway the 700 or black motor locomotives, which were a lot older than these. They were tender locomotives. They were powerful locomotives. We can't take that away from them, because they were superheated like this locomotive is. But they were very, very elderly, and these were sent up to Exmouth Junction more or less to replace the black motors on the snow ploughs when they needed to go out and plough the line, back when we had really heavy snowfall. So this one landed up at Exmouth Junction. It first came here before the Dart Valley opened, and it landed up down at Totnes. So it's been here before, and then, as I say, in its second lifetime, if you like, it came back in 1998 and has been here since. Alex Seal, did 3205 ever work on the Somerset and Dorset Road? Yes, it did. It was based at Temple Combe, Alex, and that is basically what saved its life. The rest of the class, as I explained, that were on British Railways Western region, as they did on all regions, they decided it would seem almost like on a date basis, right, on this particular date we're going to cull this class of locomotives, and that's what they did. But fortunately 3205 was based at Temple Combe, so she was away from the mainstream collets, and courtesy of Mr. Rouse she got saved. Leo Barco would love to see her at Chinner. We would love to see her at Buckfastleigh. We would like to see her restored, but I'm sure that if she is restored, that she'll do the rounds of other preserved railways. And all I can say further to that is thank you very much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you down here, and we look forward to 3205 being restored and coming back in traffic. Thank you for joining us, and look out on the website for our next broadcast. And please, 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 if you've got a few pounds, please donate it to our appeal to keep all this going for future generations. So thank you very much indeed for joining us, and look forward to seeing you all soon. Cheerio.